We're going to start with our review. There's 2 tournaments, by the way, just to remind you once again. The Genesis Scotch Open as well as the Barbasol, so we'll review both of them. We're going to actually fly through this really quick. So the first thing I wanted to look at for both of these events, go right to the bucket system and look at this column here that says success. That is this year's totals. How many of these buckets were successful? Y's indicate yeses, and how those are indicated is by looking at the top 10s. Well, first of all, it's looking at the projections. And remember, we round down with our minimums and we round up with our maximums. So this first one says 0 to 2. So then we look at how many golfers finished inside the top 10. Oh, there were 2. So the fact that there were 2, that makes this a success. If by chance this fell out of the range of our projections, then we look at the optimal lineup. And if this number's within the projections, then we give that a yes. If it's outside, then it's a no. So this first bucket is a yes. Let's go ahead and scroll through this and see how many. I'll go slow. So if you want, here's a perfect example, by the way. This bucket here, the last week's did not plays. You see this is, well, 5 to 10 basically. We had 7 golfers inside the top 10, but only 4 in the optimal lineup. Still was a success because the top 10s fell inside that number. Now, one of those interesting things as I scroll through this is the Genesis Scotch Open, as you can see, are the recent form did not plays. You can see this says 3 to 6. Now, recent form for this event, I shouldn't even say for this event, for the buckets is very skewed. You see how all of this has the same frequency? There are no success rates that go with any of this. It's because we only had 1 year's worth of data. So a lot of this it can't apply. Now, having 1, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to take it back. I'll call this a fail. That's fine. If there were 2, I'd count it a success, because when I look at this max projection over here, this is 3.89. And if you followed me long enough, you know this is my conservative maximum projection, which means we round up here and there's always has to be a 2-point gap between max and min. So this would drop the min down to 2. We still don't reach there. So we got 1 bucket that failed. The other bucket we have are 7Ks. Now, I think this is interesting because usually if we have enough data, our 7Ks, you always want somewhere between 1 to 3. In this one, we see 0 to 2. We had 4 that finished inside the top 10, 3 in the optimal lineup. So unfortunately, this one failed, but I know with more data as it normalizes, this would be a success. But still, 34 out of 36 buckets were successful. This is always posted in the optimizer, and when we build lineups, it follows these projections to a T. Like it's very strict when it comes to that. So 34 out of 36, that's pretty good. Normally we see that number 34, 36, sometimes 33. The last couple of weeks, I think like the last 4 weeks, we've had twice where it was perfect, 36 out of 36, and then we had 135 out of 36. So this is pretty on par, and I would say it's still pretty successful. Now, the next piece that goes with it are the marquee tee times. So if you follow along with me on the strategy videos, again, I'll be going live tomorrow. This is Tuesday, or I should say, I'll be going live Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll go over the marquee tee times. What I like to do is look at the top 10 groups, and the rule is you find 2 to 4 golfers, or 2 to 4 groups, and select 1 golfer from each of them. The reason being is, dating back to the 2021 PGA Championship that Phil Mickelson won at Kiawah Island, we have found at least, or I should say in each one of those, or pretty much every tournament since. Let's back that up. I was way ahead of myself trying to discuss that. Since 2021 PGA Championship, 90% of events follow the logic that I just provided. 2 to 4 golfers inside the optimal or in the optimal lineup from the marquee tee times. And the majority of the time, they don't play together. So the rule is find 2 to 4 groups, 1 golfer each, or 1 golfer from each group. And obviously that means they don't play together. So as you can see on here, Rory McIlroy, this little black tick mark indicates it's an optimal lineup golfer. Rory McIlroy was in an optimal lineup. So too was Robert McIntyre. Now you can see Tommy Fleetwood in blue. This would be our GPP winner. They obviously paired up golfers in the same lineup. And obviously you can do that, but we are hunting. We are trying to target the optimal lineup. So in order to do that, we only look at optimal lineup golfers. And there we have it again. 2 out of 4 groups. You select 2 to 4 groups, 1 golfer from each of those groups to put in lineups together. So if you started with Rory and Bobby Mack, you were looking pretty good. You had 2 of the optimal lineup golfers, which means the marquee tee times were a success. Now to put this all, put it all together, you can see 3 lineups up here. I have the optimal, right up there. We have the optimal, the $5 GPP, and the sweet spot optimal. The optimal is the best score, period. This is by far away. You can't get any better than this. So 47,500 is what you needed to spend to get to the optimal lineup. So you left $2,500 on the table, and that included $10,900 Rory McIlroy, guy who won the tournament, $7,400 Robert McIntyre, $7,200 Byung-hun An, $6,200 David Lingmer, $7,300 Nikolai Højgaard, and $8,500 Tom Kim. So yeah, leaving $2,500 on the table. That's pretty hard. Now the optimal scored 618 points, 618. The GPP winning lineup scored 573, and it left $100 on the table. It started with Rory, Bobby Mack, so 10-9, 7-4, then Nikolai Højgaard at 7-3, Tommy Fleetwood at $9,400, $8,000 Corey Connors. That's only 5 golfers so far. We gotta scroll down a little ways to find our 6th golfer, and that was Romain Langesque, which it's funny because I think several content creators were touting Romain Langesque. So I'm sure this is one of those people that did follow one of those content creators. That was pretty good. So again, that scored 573. So basically the sweet spot optimal, I follow the bucket system 100% to the T. I also follow the marquee tee times. If we follow all those rules, do we beat the GPP winning lineup? The answer is yes. It scores 607. So optimal scored 618. Sweet spot optimal scored 607. You left $200 on the table. And basically we start out with Rory, Bobby Mack, Byung-hun An, $6,200 Lingmerth, $9,600 Tyrrell Hatton, and $8,500 Tom Kim. So sweet spot optimal beats out the GPP winner. We're really close to the actual optimal. The marquee tee times are 100% successful. The buckets were 34 or 36% successful. But either way, if you follow the sweet spot optimal or the sweet spot process and you do all the buckets, everything, you won a GPP. You could have won a GPP by obviously following these golfers here, which was kind of interesting. So Lingmerth showed up a bunch in my optimizer. I didn't want to play David Lingmerth. Bias can kill you, man. Bias can kill you. So unfortunately, I didn't win a GPP. I did have one person who replied to the optimal lineup that I had for the Barbasol, had a spectacular lineup, won $100. I don't know how much he had to put in, but he was second in that contest. So I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who it was. I apologize. Well, let's take a look actually. Who was it? Chris Snar. Yeah, let's take a look. Look at that lineup. Second place. Pendrith Norman. We talked about Pendrith. 10K. Oh, this was the Barbasol. We'll get into the Barbasol here shortly, but this was a great lineup. This was following the sweet spot process. At least that is what he said, but I can tell that it is a lineup. I don't know. Did we build this lineup on stream, Chris? Let me know. That'd be awesome if we did. I'd love to hear that. 649. That's a good score. We'll see how well that does against the quarter arcade. Maybe that's what this is. I'm not sure. Short game, the $1 short game. So even better yet. Congratulations, Chris. That's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the Barbasol. So we had a little bit more data with this, unlike the Genesis Scottish Open. So we're going to start here with the bucket system once again. when we look at these projections, I should say this. You probably already know how to look at this. Obviously, we look at the projections here. We round down with our mins, round up with our maxes. We compare the top 10. If the top 10 number falls inside the projection, then it's a success. If it doesn't, then we go to the optimal lineup. And if that also doesn't, then it would be a no. So we can see one no down here, right here. But remember, there are rules to this thing that I can't put on the screen. The first rule is there has to be 2 points between the maximum and the minimum. And obviously we can't go lower than 0. So this automatically has to be 2. And the fact that this makes this 2 means this number falls inside the projection. So does this. That makes that a yes. Unfortunately, how I have it built on here, I can't change it that way. Maybe I can write it into the formula that goes into this just to show that this is 0 out of 2. So that was successful. If I come down here and look at this bucket, you can see this also is a no. But when I look at this conservative max projection of 2.87, remember this turns to 3 because we round up with the maximum, but there has to be a 2-point gap between the max and the min, or the max and the min. So this goes down to 1, but this ends up being 1 to 4. That's how I write it into the optimizer. If you got the optimizer last week, you would have seen this. Do I still have it up, I wonder? Okay, this is the Genesis Scotch Open. But that's how I wrote it in there. So that was 1 to 4. We only had one golfer that was inside the top 10 as well as the optimal lineup. So this too was a success. That's not me trying to push, you know, like trust me, that's if you follow the strategy videos, if you follow the preview videos, I say the exact same thing. Like when I talk about the bucket system here for the Open Championship, you're going to hear me say the exact same thing. Need a 2-point gap. We always look at this max projection over here just to see if we need to lower the minimum. And let me see if okay, so it is over 2. All right. Either way, that bucket was successful. And then we got one more down here, which again, this has to be 0 to 2. You can see it's 0 to 1, and there were 2 in the optimal lineup. So remember, if this number falls outside this range, then we look at the optimal lineup. And if this does fall inside the range, then it's a success. So this is a long-winded way of saying the buckets were 36 out of 36 correct, 100% correct. If you have any questions, let me know. I know it might seem like I'm trying to pull a quick one on you, but I promise you I am not. I told you it was 34 out of 36 correct for the Genesis Scotch Open, but still the SweetSpot Optimal that followed all the rules beat the GPP, so it was 100% successful for the Genesis. Let's just go ahead and keep looking into the SweetSpot process for the Barbasol. So again, I come to the Marquee tee times and look at the top 10 groups, and basically what I want to find are 3 golfers that are 2 to 4 golfers inside the Marquee tee times that were in the optimal lineup, and no one paired up together because that is the rule. So it looks like, let's do this. There were a couple withdrawals, so I can see there's one withdrawal right there. Perfect. There we go. So these are your top 9 groups. There we go. These are your top 9 groups. And as you can see, we had Grayson Murray at $8,700 and we had Lucas Glover at $10,300. Those were in the optimal lineup. You can also see the SweetSpot Optimal here in the green. Those were all, I mean, they weren't paired up together. They weren't playing together. So it still follows the whole SweetSpot process. The Marquee tee times, find 2 to 4 groups, 1 golfer each. Just make sure none of the golfers are paired up together in the Marquee tee times. And there we have it. We have Lucas Glover. We have Grayson Murray. Those are our 2 golfers that were in the optimal lineup. So the Marquee tee times, once again, 100% successful. Again, I'm not blowing smoke. Watch the preview and strategy video that I put out for both the Genesis Scotch Open and the Barbasol. I talked about it there. Now, of course, we got to look at the optimal versus the GPP. I didn't play anything greater than 25 cents. But I guess what did we have? Chris Snar, 656 was the winning score in the short game. So we can use that also. Did that score more than GPP here? Oh, whoa. I'm looking at the wrong. Okay. It does not. Okay, so the 25-cent tournament scored 640. So we got to beat 656 to beat the short game. So let's take a look. That what you see on the screen is the 25-cent. Maybe I can get Chris to show me who were the golfers in the $1, but I didn't join it. I was very low exposure for this event. So your optimal, use all $50,000 of the salary, scored 777 points, 777.5 points. And it basically was almost every guy at the top of the leaderboard. So you had Norman at 98, Nathan Kimsey at 73, Trevor Cohn at 69, Adrian Sadier at 7, Lucas Glover at 10, Grayson Murray at 8. What's that? 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. That was your optimal lineup. It used $50,000 of the salary. Perfect. Just perfect. I love that. Your GPP winner for the quarter arcade use up all 50,000 as well, and it started with Lucas Glover at 10-3. It also had Grayson Murray, so 2 guys in the optimal lineup. Had Daniel Brown, Akshay Bhatia, Jaden Trey Shaper, and JC Ritchie. Again, that used up 50,000. Scored 640 points. Now, again, the $1 short game based off of what we got from Chris Snar, the guy that was in first place scored 656 points. So does the SweetSpot Optimal beat out 656? Yeah, it scores 746. Use up $50,000 of the salary, and we go with Taylor Pendrith at 10-2, Vincent Norman at 9-8, Grayson Murray at 8-7, $7,300 Nathan Kimsey, $7,100 Marcus Kinholt, and then $6,900 Trevor Cohn. 10-9-8, 7-7-6. Once again. So the optimal scores 777.5 points. The SweetSpot Optimal scores 746.5. We obliterated any of the contests. Doesn't matter if it was a 25-cent GBP or the $1 short game. Following the SweetSpot process, you could have gotten on these guys. And let's take a look. Chris, let's look at your lineup. So Pendrith, Norman, and Cohn. 3 guys in the optimal lineup, or in the SweetSpot Optimal. Then we had Ryan Moore, Kevin Tway, and Marty Doe, which, hey, great point totals. 649, that was pretty good. 649 would have won the quarter arcade because that 640 points, but hey, hell of a lineup, man. And again, the SweetSpot process 100% successful because we would have taken down a GPP had we played the lineup on the screen. So hopefully that gives you enough confidence to look at the Open Championship. Look at the buckets that are in the preview video. Look at the marquee tee times that'll be in the strategy video. Put those things together. Maybe ask for the optimizer right there. Email me there, SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com. And the optimizer might be able to build you one of those lineups. Of course, it takes a little bit of your own thought process that goes into it, like which golfers you want to build your lineups around, like anchor around your lineups, and then let the optimizer do the rest. Again, I will build lineups Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll go live. If you want me to build you some lineups, I can do it there. But anyways, that covers the review for the Barbasol as well as the Genesis Scottish Open.